wicked chief. In the ancient village of Jafara, nestled along the banks of the majestic river Gambia, lived a man named Karafa. He was once a respected warrior who fought bravely to protect his people from invaders. As a reward for his valor, the elders of the village appointed him as the chief. However, power soon corrupted Karafa. He became arrogant, demanding tribute from the villagers and ruling with an iron fist. The once peaceful village began to tremble under his rule, and whispers of discontent spread like wildfire. Among the villagers was a young man named Kemo, known for his courage and sense of justice. Kemo had watched in silence as Karafa's tyranny grew, but he could no longer stand by while his people suffered. He began to gather other young men who were also fed up with Karafa's rule. Together, they formed a secret alliance to resist the chief's oppression. Kemo knew that this path was dangerous, but he was determined to restore peace and justice to Jafara. Chief Karafa, growing more paranoid, issued a new decree that all families must give a portion of their harvest to him. Those who failed to comply would face severe punishment. The villagers were outraged, but fear kept them silent. Kemo and his group saw this as the final straw. They began to devise a plan to challenge Karafa's rule, knowing that they would need to win the support of the entire village to succeed. Kemo sought the counsel of Baba, the village elder, who was known for his wisdom and deep connection to the spirits of their ancestors. Baba warned Kemo of the dangers of confronting Karafa directly but encouraged him to seek the protection and guidance of the ancestors. He advised Kemo to visit the sacred grove, where the spirits resided, and offer a sacrifice to gain their favor. Kemo and his closest allies made their way to the sacred grove, a place forbidden to all but the most revered elders. They brought with them offerings of kola nuts, honey, and a white goat, which they sacrificed to the spirits. As the blood of the goat soaked into the earth, Kemo prayed fervently for the strength to overcome Chief Karafa and restore peace to Jafara. Empowered by their visit to the sacred grove, Kemo and his group decided to challenge Chief Karafa's decree. They refused to hand over their harvest and encouraged other villagers to do the same. This act of defiance shocked the village, and Karafa was furious. He sent his guards to arrest Kemo and his followers, but they managed to escape into the forest, where they began to plan their next move. Kemo and his followers found refuge in a hidden part of the forest, where they established a secret village. Here, they could continue to resist Karafa without putting the rest of the villagers in danger. They trained in the ways of the warrior, preparing themselves for the inevitable battle with Karafa's forces. Kemo's leadership began to inspire hope not only among his followers but also among the villagers who heard of their bravery. Among Kemo's followers was a man named Demba, who had grown jealous of Kemo's growing influence. Tempted by the promise of riches and power, Demba secretly informed Chief Karafa of Kemo's whereabouts. Karafa, pleased with this information, rewarded Demba and prepared his forces for an attack on the hidden village. Chief Karafa's forces, led by his most trusted warriors, launched a surprise attack on the hidden village. However, Kemo and his followers were prepared. Thanks to the protection of the ancestors, they had been warned of the impending ambush. A fierce battle ensued, with Kemo's men fighting bravely against the superior numbers of Karafa's warriors. Though outnumbered, they managed to hold their ground, thanks to their knowledge of the terrain and their unwavering resolve. Despite their valiant efforts, Kemo's forces suffered heavy losses. Many of his men were captured or killed, and the hidden village was destroyed. Kemo himself was gravely wounded but managed to escape with a few of his remaining followers. They retreated deeper into the forest, where they mourned their fallen comrades and tried to regroup. Kemo knew that the only way to defeat Chief Karafa was to return to Jafara and unite the entire village against him. He sent word to Baba, asking for his help in rallying the villagers. Baba agreed and began to spread the message that Kemo was still alive and that the time had come to overthrow the wicked chief. Slowly, the villagers began to gather their courage and prepare for the final confrontation. As the day of reckoning approached, Kemo and his followers made their way back to Jafara under the cover of darkness. They were met by Baba and the villagers, who had been secretly preparing for the battle. The village was now united in their determination to overthrow Chief Karafa and restore peace to their. The night was thick with tension as Kemo, Baba, and the villagers gathered in the heart of Jafara. The flickering flames of torches cast long shadows on the ground, illuminating the determined faces of those who had chosen to fight for their freedom. Kemo, though still bearing the wounds of the recent ambush, stood tall before the crowd. His voice, though soft, carried the weight of his resolve. "We have suffered under Chief Karafa's rule for too long," Kemo began, his eyes scanning the crowd. "But tonight, we stand united. We have the power of the ancestors on our side, and with their guidance, we will reclaim our village." Baba, standing beside Kemo, nodded in agreement. "We must be strategic in our approach," he said, his voice deep and wise. "Karafa's warriors may outnumber us, but they do not have the heart of the people. We must strike swiftly and decisively." The villagers murmured in agreement, their fear slowly turning into a steely resolve. Kemo outlined the plan. They would divide into 3 groups. The first group, led by Kemo himself, would launch a direct attack on Karafa's palace, drawing the attention of his guards. The second group, under the command of Baba, would circle around and cut off any reinforcements. The third group, made up of the village women and children, would be responsible for setting traps and creating distractions throughout the village. "We must be like the lion," Kemo said, his voice growing stronger. "Silent and stealthy, but with a powerful roar when the time is right." As the plan was finalized, the villagers dispersed to prepare. The warriors sharpened their spears and swords, while the women and children gathered supplies and set up traps in the village. Kemo took a moment to pray, seeking the guidance and protection of the ancestors. He knew that the coming battle would be fierce, but he also knew that their cause was just. The village was eerily quiet as the night wore on. The air was thick with anticipation, and even the animals seemed to sense the tension. Kemo sat by a small fire, lost in thought. He knew that the outcome of the coming battle would determine the future of Jafara, and he felt the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. Baba joined him, sitting silently for a moment before speaking. "The spirits of the ancestors are with us, Kemo," he said, his voice steady. "They have seen the suffering of our people, and they will guide us through this." Kemo nodded, grateful for Baba's presence. "I just hope that we are strong enough to do what needs to be done," he said quietly. Baba placed a reassuring hand on Kemo's shoulder. "Strength comes not from the body, but from the spirit. And your spirit is strong, Kemo. You have the heart of a lion and the courage of a warrior. We will prevail." Kemo took comfort in Baba's words and felt a renewed sense of purpose. He knew that the time for doubt had passed. Now was the time for action. As dawn approached, the village was a hive of activity. The warriors, led by Kemo, moved silently through the darkness, their footsteps muffled by the soft earth. They approached Karafa's palace with caution, knowing that the element of surprise was their greatest advantage. The palace was heavily guarded, but Kemo had anticipated this. He signaled to his men, and they split into 2 groups. One group would create a diversion at the front gates, while the other, led by Kemo, would scale the walls and enter the palace from the rear. The plan worked perfectly. The guards at the front were quickly overwhelmed by the first group, and Kemo's group managed to slip into the palace undetected. They moved swiftly through the corridors, taking out any guards they encountered with silent efficiency. Finally, they reached the throne room. Chief Karafa was sitting on his grand throne, completely unaware of the danger that was closing in on him. Kemo and his men burst into the room, weapons drawn. "Your reign of terror ends here, Karafa," Kemo shouted, his voice echoing off the walls. Karafa's eyes widened in shock and fear. He reached for his sword, but Kemo was faster. With a swift movement, Kemo knocked the sword from Karafa's hand and pressed the tip of his spear against the chief's throat. "Please," Karafa pleaded, his voice trembling. "Spare me, and I will give you whatever you desire." Kemo's eyes were cold as he looked down at the man who had caused so much pain and suffering. "There's nothing you can offer that will undo the harm you've caused," he said. "Your time is over." With that, Kemo thrust the spear forward, ending Karafa's life. The chief's body slumped to the floor, and for a moment, there was silence. Then the warriors erupted in cheers, their voices filled with triumph and relief. With Chief Karafa dead, the village of Jafara was finally free. The news of Karafa's demise spread quickly, and the villagers emerged from their homes to celebrate. There was dancing and singing in the streets, and for the first time in years, the people felt a sense of hope and joy. Kemo, though weary from the battle, was filled with a deep sense of satisfaction. He had done what needed to be done, and his people were free. But he also knew that there was still much work to be done. The village needed to heal, and the scars of Karafa's rule would take time to fade. Baba approached Kemo, a proud smile on his face. "You have done well, my son," he said. "The ancestors are pleased." Kemo nodded, grateful for Baba's words. "We have all done well," he replied. "This victory belongs to all of us."